I've been trying to come up with a good bean patty recipe for a while, and I've just never really been happy with what I've come up with. They're either too mushy or they're too dry, but I didn't give up, and I recently came up with these chickpea and feta patties, and I'm so happy with them. They're really easy to make. There's no frying involved, which is really handy, and you can make them ahead. Perfect for meal prep. So let's make them. I'm gonna start by prepping some ingredients. So the binding agent I'm using in these patties is actually crushed up rice crackers. I do this because I always have a ton of these rice crackers. I don't always have breadcrumbs on hand, so it's kind of handy to have this option. You don't need to even bust out a food processor. You can just break them up. This is just an empty almond bag that I had lying around. And I put in 1 row of the rice crackers. So I just crush those up until they're pretty fine, and then I set them aside. Next, I'm going to prep the onion. So I have about 1/4 of a red onion here, and I do want to chop this pretty finely. You can use a food processor or a mini chopper if you like. I just didn't feel like making any kind of noise today, so I'm chopping it by hand. And then I'm also adding about 3 cloves of garlic. This was from a frozen bag of minced garlic. I'm just kind of estimating 3 cloves. Once that's all chopped up, I've moved that to the side as well. So once I have the veggies prepped, I'm gonna start working with the chickpeas. I have a big can of chickpeas that I've rinsed and drained. So I'm gonna dump them into this big bowl here and just mash them with a fork. Again, you can use a food processor for this if you prefer. This fork process looks kind of annoying, but it's actually not that bad. Mashing the whole can with a fork only took me about 1 or 2 minutes. Once the chickpeas are mashed, it's just about adding all the other ingredients in. So I'm adding in the onions and garlic. I also have some chopped fresh dill, and then I have 100 grams of feta cheese, spooning in some thick Greek yogurt. I just strained some of my homemade whole milk yogurt, but if you have Greek yogurt, that works the same way. You do want it to be the thicker kind, so it's not too watery. Adding those crushed rice crackers in, and zesting and juicing the lemon in as well. In terms of salt, depending on how salty your feta is, you might not want to add any salt at all. So at this stage, I would taste it for seasoning. And if you need salt, I would add up to a teaspoon, probably tops, and then about 10 cracks of pepper. So this needs to be mixed really well. I tend to use my hands because I want to make sure that it gets really thoroughly mixed. Throw a glove on if you're a glove person. And then once that's mixed really well, I like to put the whole mixture into the fridge for at least 10 minutes or so, just to kind of let the crackers absorb some of the liquid and just help the flavors kind of settle into each other. While it's chilling in the fridge, I preheat my oven to 450 degrees and I get a baking pan ready. So this is just a baking sheet that I have lined with one of those silicone baking mats. You can use parchment paper if that's what you have. And then I just took a portion scoop that makes about golf ball sized scoops, and I scooped the mixture onto the baking sheet. This made about 14 balls altogether. And then once they're all scooped, then I just kind of fix the shape in my hands, just kind of roll them into a bit more of a consistent ball and then squish them down into little patties. An optional step here is to spray the patties with a little bit of oil. I have some avocado oil spray, and I did give them a little bit of a spritz. It does help a little bit to add some browning to the top, but it's totally optional. And then I just threw these into the hot 450-degree oven for 25 minutes, and they come out so nice. They look like little cookies. If you didn't know any better, you would think that they were cookies. And really, you can actually kind of eat them as a cookie. It's like such a good little snack on its own. But I like to use these in so many different ways. I love to serve them with a bit of tzatziki or some kind of yogurt dip and just kind of dunk and eat. They're such a good snack. Or they're great on top of a salad, or just with some veggies or salad on the side, just to kind of add a little protein to whatever you're eating. But today I'm actually making a bit of a souvlaki type thing. So I made some 2-ingredient flatbread. I have a recipe for that on my blog. So I spread a little bit of tzatziki on the flatbread and then added some of these patties. I used about 1.5, and then just topped that with some tomatoes and onions and a bit more tzatziki, and that was my lunch. So, so good. These patties are great to make ahead. You can store them in the fridge for at least a week, and you can keep them in the freezer as well. Eat them cold, eat them room temperature, warm them up, whatever. They're so good, they're quite filling, and they're a great way to use a can of chickpeas. You can find the full recipe for these patties linked below, and I really hope you give these a try because they're super packed with flavor. They have such a nice texture. They're not too dry, they're not too mushy. They're just really satisfying and delicious. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, and I'll see you next time.